Alright, walk with me down a little pretty simple path of adding, subtracting, and multiplying when you have complex numbers, with which is basically a combination of real and imaginary numbers. I, as you might have seen, was basically the square root of -1, but we've disguised it as I so we can continue to work with the problem. So how are we going to work with i's? We're going to treat I just like a variable. It's not a variable, but we're going to treat it a lot like one. And it's not a variable because it doesn't vary in its value from place to place. It is always the square root of -1. But we're going to replace it with I when we see the square root of -1. And let's take a quick look. If you're adding, well, 3 plus 7i plus 5 minus 10i, you're just going to combine like terms. All right, you're just going to combine like terms. So I've got a 3 and a 5, that's 8. I've got a positive 7i and a negative 10i, that's minus 3i. And notice the format of that. I put the real component up front, the imaginary component at the back. That's a complex number, and I'm done. All right. Down here, if you want to subtract, well, let's just change it to addition. Of course, you can't just change something to addition. If you change it to addition, you have to distribute the negative. We like to say keep, change, change. Keep the first term, keep, and then change this to addition, and then change the back end by distributing the negative. So this is going to be 5 minus 8i plus, and then we're going to distribute that negative to the 2 and to the negative 4i. So minus 2 and negative 4i is really plus 4i. Once you've changed it to addition and distributed that negative to everything in the back end, you can just add like terms. Okay, now you just add 5 and a -2, that's 3. Negative 8i, positive 4i, that's negative 4i. That's my answer to that one. So, pretty simple. Alright, and then, sorry for all that beeping. That's messages coming through. And let's see, so we're going to treat it just like a variable, except we're going to substitute using our I facts, as I like to call them, the facts about I. And our I facts are, we're going to use those whenever possible. I to the first, well, we're just going to simplify that, make it I. I to the second, we learned that that is the same thing as -1. I to the third, we went through some mathematics in the previous video and found out that was -I. And I to the fourth, we found out that that was lovely at just plain old 1. So I1 with negatives in the middle. That's our I facts list. All right, and so here's an example where we're going to substitute whenever possible. Ooh, I like to look at this, a 2i squared. Whenever I see an I squared, I get kind of happy because I can replace the I squared according to my I facts chart with -1. So I'm just going to replace that with -1, and then times that 2 coefficient in front, that's just going to be -2. Look at this 3i cubed, 3i to the third power. Well, I to the third power, according to my I facts chart, is -I. So I've got 3 times -I. That was a little less exciting because I still have an imaginary number, but I'm going to just have to deal with it. So 3 times -I, that is -3i. I'm treating it kind of like a variable at this point, plus that -2 I had, and oh, I still have that -8i that I had in the beginning. I can't replace that with anything, and I've got a nice old positive 10 out there at the end. When I get it down to that, now I'm just going to add like terms or combine like terms. So I've got a -3i and a -8i. That's -11i. I'm going to put that at the end kind of for standard form. And then I got a -2 and a positive 10. Those combine to a positive 8. 8 minus 11i is my answer to that one. So that's add and subtract. Multiply is pretty simple. You're going to like it if you've used box or foil. Well, 4 plus 8i, 3 minus 2i. Put them in the box. Or in the outside dimensions, 4 times 3, that's 12. 8i times 3, that's 24i. 4 times -2i, that's -8i. And then finally, -2i times this 8i over here, this one is going to be -16i squared. And that's kind of how we're treating it like a variable. I times I, or x times x would be x squared. I times I would be I squared. I'm going to combine these like terms here. So this is going to be 12 plus 24i minus 8i combines to plus 16i, and then I have that minus 16i squared at the end. And I'm almost done, except for I realize that, hey, I squared, if I see that, I can replace it using my I facts with negative 1. So this is going to be 12 plus 16i minus 16 times negative 1. The negative 1 times negative 16 is just going to turn this into plus 16. So I've got 12 plus 16i plus 16. So 12 and positive 16, that's going to be 38. No, it's not. Silly me. 28, that's better. 28 plus 16i. And I do put it in that standard form. That's it. That is multiplying. So give it a try on some of the practice problems that you have.